Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. In this episode, we're going to talk about the fastest way to find a mule deer buck anywhere you hunt in the West. Because here's the truth, a lot of folks don't want to admit. Most mule deer hunters aren't struggling because there aren't bucks in the unit. They're struggling because they're in the wrong country and they stay there too long. They burn days, sometimes entire seasons, glassing empty basins, hiking through country that looks good but doesn't actually hold deer. And the problem isn't effort. It's that there's no system behind what they're doing. They're guessing. They're hoping. They're reacting instead of making decisions. If you're not familiar with who I am, I've been hunting and guiding Western big game for over 34 years, and I've been a professional strength conditioning and nutrition coach for more than 30 years, and I'm here to help you become a more successful and consistent mule deer hunter. What I've learned about mule deer is this. Finding bucks consistently isn't just about covering more ground. It's about eliminating the wrong ground fast or faster. So in this episode, I'm going to give you a repeatable system you can use to locate mule deer bucks quickly, no matter the state, terrain, or season. This is about speed. It's about efficiency and making the right decisions under pressure. You don't need more time. You need a better system. If you really want to get faster at finding mule deer bucks, you have to start by understanding why most hunters are slow in the first place, because it's not a lack of effort. Most guys are putting in the miles, they're hiking hard, they're glassing, they're doing what they think they're supposed to do, but they're doing it in the wrong places, and a lot of times for way too long. The first mistake I see is hunting what I call pretty country, high alpine basins, big open views, scenic terrain that looks exactly like what you see in magazines and on social media. And yeah, sometimes there are deer there, but a lot of times, especially under pressure, those aren't the places mature bucks are actually living. The second mistake is staying too long in dead zones. This is one of the biggest time killers I see. A guy invests time hiking into an area, so he wants it to be good. He tells himself to just give it one more sit, one more evening, one more morning. And I love that patience. But meanwhile, there's nothing there telling him bucks are actually using that area right now. Third, letting emotion override your decisions. You start hunting based on how you feel instead of what the situation is actually telling you. You like the spot. It feels right. You've got history there, so you stay, even when the conditions don't support it. And then there's confusing sign with current presence. What's happening right now? Tracks, old beds, droppings, that tells you deer were there. It doesn't necessarily tell you that they're there now. And mule deer, especially mature bucks, can shift fast based on pressure, feed, and conditions. So here's the reality. Mule deer bucks are extremely patternable in my experience, but only if you understand the structure they rely on: terrain, wind, pressure, feed. Those things dictate where they live, not how good an area looks. And this is where a lot of deer hunters get it wrong. They think finding bucks is about covering more ground or just getting lucky or stumbling into the right basin at the right time. It can help, but that's not what it comes down to, in my opinion. Speed comes from elimination, not luck. The faster you can look at a piece of country and say, this doesn't hold bucks right now, the faster you move on and the faster you get into the areas that actually matter. The fastest way to find bucks is knowing where they are not. Now let's get into that part, because that's actually what changes results. How to walk into a brand new unit and break it down fast, because this is where most deer hunters lose days. They show up, pick a spot that looks good on a map, hike in, set up, and hope deer are there. And when they're not, they hesitate, they second guess, they burn time trying to make a low probability area work. That's not how to do this, in my opinion. When I go into a new unit, I'm not trying to just find deer right away. I'm trying to eliminate the bad ground fast. The first way to approach it is pretty simple, right? Start high and glass down. Get yourself into a position where you can see as much country as possible. Multiple basins, multiple faces, multiple transitions. You're not committing to anything yet. You're just gathering information and making decisions as quickly as possible. The second option, depending on pressure and terrain, is to start in the edge zones. Those areas where pressure meets security, just off of roads or just off of trail systems. Places a lot of deer hunters walk past on their way to better looking country. That's where a lot of bucks live once the season actually starts.
Hey, if you're serious about becoming a more consistent mule deer hunter, I built a mule deer hunting series of ebooks to walk you through my entire process step by step. This is a 7-volume system designed specifically for Western hunters pursuing mule deer in real mountain and public land environments. In volume 1, Foundations and Reality, you're going to learn how to understand how mule deer actually live, the myths that mislead most hunters, and the mindset required for consistent success. In volume 2, Finding Mule Deer and Understanding Pressure, you're going to learn how mule deer move across the landscape and how hunting pressure changes their behavior. In volume 3, Terrain, Aspect, and Positioning, you're going to learn how to read mule deer country and position yourself correctly using terrain and wind. In volume 4, Glassing, Visual Discipline, and Buck Identification, you're going to learn how to find mule deer, glass efficiently, and identify mature bucks. In volume 5, Early Season and High Country Strategy, you're going to learn how to hunt velvet and early season bucks in alpine terrain. In volume 6, Rut, Transition, and Late Season Movement, we're going to talk about understanding migration, cold weather movement, and how bucks shift through the season. And in volume 7, Execution and Decision Stacking, we're going to talk about how to close the distance, execute under pressure, and make disciplined decisions during the stalk. If you want to hunt mule deer with structure instead of guesswork, you can buy them individually, or you can bundle all the volumes together and save 50% off the entire mule deer hunting series of ebooks at backboneunlimited.com.
Now, here's the shift a lot of deer hunters need to make. You should be prioritizing multiple basins very quickly, not just one basin slowly all the time. You're not there to babysit a spot with this system. You're there to evaluate it, class it, break it down, make a decision. And that decision needs to be based on clear rules. No deer? Move. Wrong terrain for the season? Move. Low probability based on wind or pressure or feed? Move. No hesitation, no emotional attachment. Decision speed equals success speed, because the faster you can confidently say yes or no to a piece of country, the faster you're going to land in the right areas. And this applies across every scenario you're going to face out there in mule deer country. Early season alpine, you should be hitting multiple basins at first light, looking for bucks, feeding, and eliminating entire drainages within hours if you're not producing. Mid-elevation archery, you're focusing on transitions, broken terrain, pockets of cover. You move quickly until you find the combination of structure and deer activity that actually makes sense right now. Late season migration, you're covering ground with optics, locating groups, and cutting off everything that doesn't have deer in it right now, because late season is about current pressure, not just the potential of the country. The biggest mistake I think you can make is slowing down too early, because once you find deer, then you can take your time. But until you do, speed is your advantage over other hunters, especially. Now we're going to get into what actually matters here, because this is where a lot of folks either start figuring it out or they keep spinning their wheels. If you want to find bucks faster, you have to stop thinking about areas and start thinking about conditions, because mule deer aren't randomly scattered across the landscape. They're tied to a very specific set of non-negotiables, right? And if those aren't present, it doesn't matter how good the country looks. The first set of conditions is wind and thermals. Everything a mature buck does, especially bedding, is tied to his wind advantage. He's not just laying down wherever it looks comfortable behind some random rock. He's positioning himself where he can live, where he can smell what's behind him and see what's below him a lot of times. If the wind doesn't work, he's not going to be there. It's that simple. The next is pressure. This is where a lot of deer hunters get it wrong. They think deer disappear. In my experience, they don't. They just relocate. They slide into pockets. They shift elevation. They move into terrain that gives them an advantage over people. And if you're not accounting for that, you're always going to be hunting where they used to be. And then you've got feed quality, because this changes constantly. Early season, you've got got green up and high quality feed higher up. But as things dry out, or if you're dealing with drought, that's going to shift. Late season, snow starts dictating everything. Food becomes more limited and deer become more concentrated. If you're not matching your hunt to what they're eating right now, you're going to be behind. And then there's security cover, right? And this is a big one. We probably could have started with it because mature bucks don't just want cover, they want separation. They want distance from roads a lot of times, distance from pressure, terrain that breaks up visibility, places where they can exist without being seen unless you're in exactly the right position. And that's why you'll see them in overlooked pockets more than obvious basins once the pressure from other hunters actually hits. So when you put all of this together, here's the shift I'd like to see you make. You're not trying to find deer. You're trying to find the conditions that deer require: wind advantage, manageable pressure, current feed, and security. If all of those line up, deer are going to be there or they'll be nearby. If they don't, you can glass that country all day and still come up empty. If the conditions aren't right, the deer won't be either. This is where everything either comes together for you or it falls apart, right? Because getting close to bucks is one thing. Knowing you're close and capitalizing on it is what actually kills those mule deer. Most deer hunters miss the window. They're either too early and leave, or they're close and don't recognize it, or sometimes they hesitate when they should actually be committing. So let's try to clean all that up. First, what are the signs you're in the right zone? Number one is does. If you're consistently seeing does in an area, that matters, especially depending on the time of year, right? Bucks are rarely far from where does are living. Now, depending on the time of the year, they might not actually be with them. They might be just using it differently, right? More isolated, better wind for themselves, things of that nature, but they'll be nearby. Second, fresh tracks with purpose, not random movement, not old sign. I'm talking about tracks that actually show direction, movement between feed and bed or bed to security. That tells you deer are actively using that terrain right now. That's important, the timing, right? And third, and this is one guys overlook all the time, a spot that feels right structurally. Structurally means the right wind, the right terrain breaks, the right visibility advantage, right? Even before you see a buck, the setup has to make sense. That's not guesswork, that's pattern recognition. Now, on the flip side, here's when you leave without hesitation. No movement over multiple glassing sessions. You move. Bad wind structure that you can't hunt effectively. You move. Why hunt it if you can't actually hunt it? Too much pressure, tracks, camps, early access, constant disturbance. You've got to move. This is where discipline comes in because, again, a lot of deer hunters stay too long. They get close, but not close enough. And instead of adjusting, they wait. So here's the shift. Once the signs are there, you're going to stop reacting and you start anticipating. You don't wait to see the buck. You position for where he's going to be, the most likely area. That means being in places before first light, being set up before last light, understanding movement patterns instead of just chasing sightings. You're not hunting what you saw, you should be hunting what's about to happen. And that's where speed meets precision, because all of that elimination, right, of all that bad country, all that movement, all that decision making, it leads to this moment. At the end of the day, this is really all it comes down to. Just one thing: how you use your time. Because most mule deer hunters aren't failing from a lack of effort. They're failing because they're spending that effort in the wrong places for too long. They're just wandering around. They're hiking. They're second guessing, right? They sit in country that looks good and just hope something eventually happens. And that's why seasons slip away and mule deer tags go unpunched. But the hunters who consistently find bucks, they operate differently. They make decisions faster. They eliminate aggressively. They trust what the terrain, the wind, and the conditions are telling them right now about deer. They're not emotionally tied to spots. They're tied to a system. Most deer hunters wander and hope, but successful mule deer hunters run a system. And when you start doing that, when you start cutting through country with purpose instead of just guessing, everything speeds up and you stop wasting time. And you're going to find deer faster. You're going to get into better positions and you're going to give yourself more real opportunities at mature bucks. Because in the end, it's not about just working harder, even though I love that. It's about finding the truth about the deer in your area faster. Now, if you want to go deeper into mule deer movement, pressure patterns, terrain positioning, and structured decision making, that's exactly why I built the Mule Deer Hunting series of ebooks. It's a progressive system designed to help you understand how mule deer actually use country and how to position yourself accordingly. I have a link to those ebooks in the description. And if you want ongoing access to the Team Backbone community, classroom, my full digital vault of mule deer resources, private discussions, and direct communication to me for planning, you can join Team Backbone at backboneunlimited.com underneath our membership tab. Because everything we talk about here is connected. Preparation is not a single video, it's a system. Thanks for being here. I appreciate all of you. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.